Travel at low cost with points and miles. Credit card rewards bring the smiles. Many adventures, tales to be told. Make and save money, the world will unfold. Fight the war on happiness, pick up the gold. Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast breaks the mold.
You're listening to the Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Vacula, here to help you travel the world at next to no cost with credit card points, miles, benefits, and rewards. Make money, save money, and take advantage of great deals. Thanks for joining me for today's episode, the Dave Ramsey Debunked Halloween Special with returning guest Darren Remsburg. We respond to a Dave Ramsey Show Highlight clip titled, "What Makes You Think You're the Credit Card Exception?" Debunking Ramsey personality's talking points, aiming to make credit cards seem spooky and not worthwhile. Before today's episode, some quick announcements. I'll be speaking at 2 more events in 2024, including the October Chicago Seminars event at Holiday Inn Elk Grove Village and the Miles and Points and Gambling event, Zorkfest, November 2024 in Las Vegas. Visit meetup.com/Philly Miles and Points to RSVP for monthly Greater Philadelphia Travel Credit Miles and Points meetups I host in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. The next meetups are on November 17th and December 15th of 2024. Find a link in the show notes. For more content between podcast episodes, follow Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast on Facebook and X, formerly known as Twitter. Follow Justin Vacula on Instagram. Search Hurdy Gurdy Travel on subscribestar.com to financially support my efforts starting at the $5 a month tip jar level. The website udio.com created the podcast intro music. On with today's episode. All right, thank you for joining me today, co-host and returning guest, Darren Remsburg.
Thanks for having me back, Justin.
Yes, we have now a rebuttal to Dave Ramsey. It's been a very long time since I've addressed Dave, but I've still seen some Dave defenders on various social media pages, so I think this is another opportunity to counter his various talking points and arguments.
I think the only thing I've heard you be more excited about than talking about Dave Ramsey's fallacies is the plum card, Justin. So really looking forward to digging into this with you.
The American Express plum card.
That's correct. That's correct.
And the intricacies of using gas containers to refill gas. That's always been a thing.
Absolutely.
So I have a YouTube video here. This was The Ramsey Show Highlights. 3.48 million subscribers on this page. It's titled, "What Makes You Think You're the Credit Card Exception?" So right from the title, what are you thinking about this title?
My initial thought is that Dave Ramsey and I probably fundamentally disagree about how to leverage and use credit to benefit myself, my family, and our overall economic situation.
So why do you think that you're the exception for credit card? As he'll often and others will talk about, all these people pay interest, these people are going into debt. What makes you a winner while other people have paid interest in this game and they're losing?
Yeah, I guess I don't know, because I don't know other people's scenarios and how they've gotten into the situation they've in. But I think for me, it's fairly obviously beneficial. I mean, I track annual fees that I pay, points and miles that I accumulate, what those points and miles are value at, cash back that I'm accumulating, ways in which I'm converting points and miles to cash, way I'm benefiting, leveraging credit card points and miles to increase the return on certain investments. I mean, there's a whole host of things that, time after time, both of us, I know, keep track of those things and find them to be immensely beneficial and profitable. So why do I think I'm the exception? I guess because, as the kids say, I got the receipts.
Since you started using credit cards, have you found your spending patterns changing at all? Do you find that you spend more than you would if you were to use cash or debit? How does that go for you?
I mean, I think that's a bit of a trick question, but yes, right? Let's take our gift card reselling stuff that we've talked about before. where, at Giant, we're purchasing gift cards, we're accumulating gas points or grocery points, and then those gift cards, if we're not using them, or reselling them. Well, if I were to use cash for that, or debit cards, I wouldn't really accumulate any additional points other than what Giant was offering. And so while there's sometimes those deals would be borderline profitable, it's really the extra 4 and 5% back on those that make it even more beneficial and worthwhile. So have my spending patterns changed? Oh, absolutely. Right. But, and I mean, I think the other thing that you and I both do that is probably not applicable to this is manufactured spending, right? We're using the credit that credit cards provide to us, credit card companies provide to us, in order to accumulate points and miles by buying things that can be fairly quickly either resold or converted directly into cash. But maybe that's not your question.
Yeah, so maybe, okay, you go to a restaurant, or you're ever in a scenario where, oh, well, I have credit, so I normally would spend about 20, but since I have a credit card, well, we'll just worry about it later. I'm going to spend 50, and instead of buying the $20 jeans, oh, I might as well just buy the $75 jeans because I have credit. Or, oh, I went to a local bar and I was going to buy one drink, but since I have credit, I'm just going to buy a whole round for the whole bar and overspend. That's how Ramsey is making it seem here, that because people have credit, that they're going to overspend and buy things they can't afford.
I've not found that to be the case. My spending habits for organic spend, right, things that we're spending on outside of the points and miles hobby, hasn't really changed. I don't find that to be the case. I know that's not the case with you. I know that your frugality persists, even in the face of overwhelming points and miles opportunities.
Yes. I'm still on team water when I'm going out to eat. I'll even bring the flavor enhancers with me rather than spending $8 on alleged discounted cocktail at the Cheesecake Factory during happy hour. So I'm still being intentional about my spend. I'm not engaged in some lifestyle creep or inflation that's beyond my means.
I think that gets back to some fundamental financial literacy too, right? Having budgets, assessing how you're doing against your budget, that sort of thing. Whether you're making, 50,000, 15,000, 500,000, you can spend more than you make, regardless of what that number is. And having a budget, understanding what you're spending and how you're spending it, on an annual basis, certainly, but on quarterly evaluation certainly is helpful. And that also helps, again, whether you're spending money on a credit card or whether you're spending money on a debit card, those sorts of basic financial tools are still important.
Yes, you're being mindful about the spending, you're being intentional, you're thinking about, okay, this is the money I can afford as discretionary income, where some people might sit with certain apps or spreadsheets and figure these things out and not go into debt and spending unnecessarily. And now, since you're in the hot seat, how do you keep track of the card balances? Do you have any of your cards on auto pay? How do you go about paying them off?
I do have a few cards on auto pay. It tends to be the cards that I don't do a lot of manufactured spend on, so a pretty consistent spending, month to month, and so I don't anticipate large purchases there that would, for some reason, overdraw my account, right? That we want to avoid that. Again, there's penalties for that. Banks impose penalties for overdrawing your account. And there's also penalties for late payments. So I don't know that I have the best system. My system essentially is I sit down every weekend, I go through my accounts and figure out which ones I owe in the next month or so, or excuse me, the next week or so, and which ones I don't owe for another week. Because the other thing I'm doing is, and I know this is something you're doing as well or have done, Justin, is I'm taking payments from some of my purchases and reselling, and I'm putting them in high yield interest accounts, right? So, I sell something, I get a $80,000 check or wire, that maybe that payment isn't due on that card for another 3 weeks. Well, I can stick the $80,000 into that high yield savings account and accrue interest off that before I need to make that payment. So there's lots of different ways to do that, and different benefits from waiting versus paying, right? There's a bit of a credit hit by having your account close with your credit card, balance close at a high level. But there's also benefits of having that money in a high yield savings account and being able to benefit from that as well.
Yes, and we're doing things at a more advanced level with multiple cards, multiple accounts, creative spending or manufacturer spending, as you said. But I think for a lot of people out there that maybe have 1, 2, maybe 3 credit cards, just to log into the accounts maybe once a week, once a month, put them on auto pay, even treat it like a debit card in some cases, keeping mindfulness, keeping control, making sure to pay these cards off and not pay interest. I don't think it's a Herculean task like Ramsey makes it out to be, as we'll discover in this video. But of course, if you can't control your spending, then you should stay away from credit. But Ramsey will never say that. He's saying that everyone should stay away from credit and no one can be disciplined, which is really an egregious statement in his black and white world.
Dave Ramsey is, in my opinion, essentially the Alcoholics Anonymous for folks that struggle with finances, right? Struggle with money and spending. And he doesn't offer a nuanced approach. He offers like you said, a very black and white. And, you hear some of these call-in questions and it's clear that he's not going to, he's not going to bend, right? He's not going to offer any level of nuance. It's, why would you do that? Don't you know the facts? Don't you know that millions of people are in credit card debt, right? Like he's never going to suggest that there's opportunities there. That's his approach. And he's been very successful running that financial model, right? Because he seems to have done very well in the building of that company.
All right, let's get to it. Let's get to the video here. This is a new thing of having 3 different audios, so hopefully we'll be all right with this. Here we go. This is the YouTube video, What Makes You Think You're the Credit Card Exception, from The Ramsey Show Highlights. We're responding to this as offering some criticism here, so stay away, copyright trolls.
Kathy is going to start us off today. Kathy's over in Austin, Texas. Hi, Kathy. How are you?
Great. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure. What's up?
So I've heard you all advise against using credit cards in favor of debit cards or cash. So my question is, why shouldn't my husband and I take advantage of getting credit card points for travel expenses that are required for work but are going to be reimbursed by the employer?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. The caller says, what's wrong with using credit cards for employer reimbursements? Now, Darren, I think you're in this situation where you're working, you have a 9-to-5-ish type job, and you get reimbursed by your employer for travel. So if your employer said something like, hey, we'll give you a corporate card and we'll just take care of it, or you can use your own cards and get reimbursed, what would you pick?
I would absolutely pick using my own cards and being reimbursed. Again, I mean, and as we'll find out here in Kathy's call-in is because there's benefits of having that additional spend, right? So you could put it on a card that offers some sort of multiplier, whether it's staying at a Hilton and using an Aspire card and getting 12 or 14 or 16 or whatever stacking opportunities there for you are, right? So I think there's a fair bit of opportunity there to do that. And you're, of course, regardless whether you're using your own card or your company's card, you're still going to accrue benefits from a loyalty perspective. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I'll be interested to see what Dave says. I got to guess, though. I'm going to guess he's going to say, well, wait.
Clue,
right. I got a hunch. First, he's not going to answer the question directly because the answer is clearly that would make a lot of sense, right? Like the risk is low and it would make sense to do that. But he doesn't want to say that. So he's going to deflect and say something about the company being a bad company to work for or something like that. That's my prediction.
Yeah. Now, even if you were using something like a Citi Double Cash card, getting 2% cash back on all the employer-based expenses, you're talking about a flight maybe to Kalamazoo, Michigan. I know you've been in that area, hotel nights, some food reimbursements. So what we're talking, like playing the prices right here, is it over $1,500, around $1,500? Like what might that look like for a company trip for a business weekend, a business decision?
Probably $1,500 is close for probably a 3 or 4 day trip, including flights and maybe Uber plus hotel stay and meals, right? So meals is the other thing.
Yeah, because America loves math. Maybe that's somewhere around like $30, $35 if we're talking like $1,500, $2,000, even on a 2% cashback card, just one credit card getting 2% back, and usually a pretty easy thing to submit the receipts and get reimbursed. Or maybe some employers will just say, okay, we're going to give you a certain allowance for this trip, right? So yeah, getting an extra $20-$30 added, pretty easy, clicking a few buttons, submitting receipts, I would think, right?
Yeah, again, I mean, certainly some companies will provide a per diem, and I think the U.S. government provides a per diem for eating and so forth in a day, and so yeah, you submit receipts. I think some universities do the same. My company actually issues American Express corporate cards, and so sadly, I don't have the opportunity to
war on happiness. On happiness.
I have to when I'm out on trips, if I want to make money, I have to swing by a CVS and use my Cash App card. That's the thing.
Yeah, somehow the CVS Cash App play has been going on for like 2.5 months now for $20 back on $400 in spend. So it's really wild.
Every day.
All right, let's hear what Ramsey has to say then.
So your employer is so poor they require you to advance them for your own travel?
Oh, it's the attack on the employer. Oh, your
Perfect.
Employer is poor.
He said exactly what I thought he would say, right? Oh, we're not going to answer this question in a straightforward way. I'm gonna deflect. I'm gonna attack your employer and tell you that you're working for a bad company, and that's why you shouldn't do this thing that everyone else thinks makes sense. Sure, Dave, we got you there.
Is your employer poor, Darren?
They are not. They are not. They are a top S&P 500 company. So,
have you ever been stiffed by your employer and not get paid on any reimbursements?
No, in the very rare instance where for some reason somebody doesn't accept an American Express card for a company expenditure, and I have to put it on a personal card. I've never had.
Ooh, that sounds like a great opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, right. I have.
Oh, hey, Darren, why are you going to all these restaurants that don't accept American Express?
Right. No,
oops.
It's not the situation I find myself in. But every once in a while, yeah, you have to admit the situation. Everything came before that. That's. Yeah, I mean, so and fewer, companies or restaurants or vendors are not accepting American Express anymore. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm sure Dave is going to provide us an example of some company somewhere that stiffed a person, and so now he's going to hold that up as the shining example of how all companies that make you or allow you to use your own company card or use your own personal cards for company expenses are shells of a actual company that are all doomed to fail, because I'm sure that's the nuanced approach that Dave Ramsey would take in a situation like this.
All right, so let's hear what he has to say.
No, sir.
The caller laughing at Dave Ramsey. It's like such a ridiculous response. All right, we'll go back to the
absolutely laughing.
Well, why do they require you to advance them for your own travel?
The co-host here is laughing at the caller. So this is pretty typical. People call on the Dave Ramsey Show with very fair, legitimate questions. Like, I have no reason to believe that this caller is a troll or giving Ramsey a hard time. But imagine just calling in and being on a show. You're a fan of Dave or whatever the case is, and you're just getting laughed at. Like, is that answering the question?
Someone's coming in and challenging Dave's rules of no credit cards ever, and he's got to put them in their place, so to speak. And sounds like that's what's happening.
Which often seems like on the Dave Ramsey Show. All right, we'll go back to the video here.
On behalf of an employer and they're not paying for it in advance? Why are they making you pay for it for them?
Well, that's the established protocol.
Okay, so Dave Ramsey is saying, why don't they pay for it in advance, which is not answering the caller question. The caller is saying, hey, what's wrong with me using my own credit cards for job expenses and getting reimbursed?
Credit cards are not an option, though. Dave's already established that. He's drawn the line in the sand. There's nothing good that can come from a credit card. So you can't answer that question directly if you don't believe that credit cards are useful financial tools.
Yeah, he's just avoiding the question. All right, let's hear more of what he has to say.
Why?
I don't know. We haven't asked them.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I wouldn't even want to know the reason why. Like, thank you, employer, for allowing me to use my own personal cards and get reimbursed so I can get points, I can get cash back, I can do what I want on my end, and that's actually boosting my income in an indirect way.
Yes.
Doesn't that seem like really, really easy money as long as you're remotely organized, you submit the receipts or go through whatever protocols that they have to offer?
Yeah.
All right, back to the video here.
So you understand that if they decide not to pay you 1 month, that those are your credit cards.
Oh, so what do you think, Darren, your employer, what are the chances that your employer is just going to totally stiff you and not pay you 1 month?
For my expenses or my salary? I guess in either instance, I think that the chances are quite low, right? I mean, Dave's talking about, and I'm sure he's going to provide an example at some point about some poor sucker that, went to work one day and got his pink slip and all his expenses were also deemed to be illegitimate or something, right? But I just, again, I don't know that this is really going to move the needle for the things you and I do. It would be a nice bonus. I think the bottom line here is that Dave is, again, already demonized credit cards. And so then anytime someone asks a question about credit cards, regardless of how reasonable it may seem, he's going to make a point to ridicule the idea, embarrass the person. It's not a thoughtful response. It's not a engaging, and, he's the expert and everybody else is an idiot. And so, yeah, I can't wait to hear the rest of this clip.
All right. We're just 1 minute in. We'll continue with the video.
And you understand that I'm the guy that's been counseling and coaching people for 35 years. So I'm the guy that had the guy walk in with $11,000 on his Amex that was supposed to be reimbursed. But when he went to the office that day, there was a padlock on the door and they'd filed Chapter 11. He got nada.
All right, so
bingo, I got bingo.
One guy ran up $11,000 in travel expenses. Do you ever even run up that amount of money in travel expenses, like $11,000 for one thing?
I do not. I anticipate if you were a sales, if you were field based in sales and were traveling, every day, overnights, every night, maybe your territory is, all of the Midwest or all of the East, something like that. I mean, maybe you could rack up $10,000 or $11,000 in a month's time. Yeah, it would be it'd be quite a bit.
Yeah, a padlock on the door.
Yeah,
the next day.
Yeah, there you go. Very very ironclad, right? No subtlety there.
Yeah, and I think you might end up in some bigger problems if your employer just closed its doors the next day. But if you're spending $11,000, I hope that you would have a big salary with that, and that you'd have money behind, and that you're not going to be in, I owe $11,000, so therefore I'm going to be paying like 22% credit card interest.
Well, and the other thing, right, is that most companies provide some opportunity to charge back or dispute charges or things like that, right? So I I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a tax, I'm not providing legal advice or tax advice or financial advice, but the idea that all of a sudden you're stuck with that amount of money and there's no recourse, and the rest of your life is now ruined, to your point, is a very simplistic evaluation of the situation.
Yeah, and what is the risk? I mean, there's always some kind of risk that anything can go, like, oh, well, my roof collapsed one day, and maybe I shouldn't own a house, I shouldn't have a mortgage because this and that can happen. I can get my home invaded, like all these things can happen. But these are low risks, and we take these risks to go about day to day. So I guess if you're not comfortable with the very, 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 I would think, low risk that your job is just going to be padlocked the next day, then okay. But surely we're taking risks every day, driving down the street, walking. We're just doing a lot of things that have very, very, very low risk. I don't think that can really be avoided.
No, right. Exactly. I mean, they're people are poor assessors of risk generally, just humans in general, me, you, everybody. Especially small but catastrophic risk. But geez, this seems like a one-time example intended to, again, ridicule or scare Kathy away and demonstrate how Dave has 35 years of knowledge and experience and no one else has the answers except for him.
Oh, past podcast guest Beth works at a university, and I think there's very, very, very low risk that a university, for example, were to declare bankruptcy, and there'd be a padlock the next day. And I would imagine that there would be warning signs down that road where at some point, like, okay, well, the business, the company, whatever's losing money, so maybe I won't do these expenses, won't put these expenses on my personal cards. But do you really have any confidence that the next day your job is just going to fire you or padlock or anything like that? Like that's just really, really unlikely.
I'm sure what Dave says next, though, is more reasonable and will provide assurance to Kat.
All right, let's wait for the groundbreaking rebuttal here.
Had $11,000 on his Amex. Amex didn't care if his company had gone broke. They wanted their money.
Yeah, again, the dispute option is available. Hey, I was working for this company. They agreed to reimburse me for this and that travel. Amex classically does their investigations. I've had some expenses before that weren't mine, or I had to dispute certain charges. I had one issue where I was supposed to receive a reimbursement from them even, and they had to launch an investigation, but I eventually got reimbursed the money for that, which was very good. So Dave wants to the credit cards aren't your friends. You know, they just want their money. They're not going to work with you. They're not going to cover you by any means that's the talking point here. The banks aren't your friends. They don't care. They're just going to want the money.
To some extent, I believe that's correct, right? I mean, generally speaking, the banks are interested in customers and customers who spend a lot of money. I would say that for folks that are, that have worked with credit card companies for long periods of time and have spent a fair bit of money, that the credit card company wants you to keep spending that money, right? The way they make their money, in addition to the high interest rates for those folks that don't pay their balances off every month. And again, you said it earlier, I'll say it again. If you're not able to pay your balances off every month, maybe debit cards are a better option for you, at least in the short term. But the other way that credit card companies make their money is through interchange fees. So every time you use their credit card, merchant pays a small percentage of the purchase to the credit card company for the convenience of accepting that credit card. So the more money you spend, the more money I spend, the more money Amex and Chase and Bank of America and Citi, in theory, if we still had Citi cards, would make.
The First National Bank of Omaha too. That's one of my favorites.
Can't forget Synchrony Bank, also a local favorite.
All right, let's continue with the video here.
Understandable.
Yeah, it's kind of a problem, isn't it?
For him, absolutely.
For you, too.
Why are you different?
Oh, so the caller says it's a problem for the guy who is out, the alleged guy allegedly out the $11K, that it's a problem for him. And Kathy says, oh, that's not a problem for me. I don't think that's going to happen to me. And now the code's saying, what makes you different? Is this oh, well, look, we got a swing set for our family, for the kids, and the swing set's going fine, but oh, look, somewhere in Mississippi, one of those swing sets broke, so nobody should ever buy swing sets. This fringe, unlikely example. Oh, I don't know. We shouldn't do that.
I think the discourse here is not intended to educate or inform or support. It's intended to ridicule and prove why Dave and his co-host are correct, and Kathy and anybody that would dare ask a similar question to Kathy are wrong. It's not a style that I find to be effective or.
All right, let's continue with the video here.
Well, we haven't experienced that same situation that you just described.
I know, but
so
you're exposed to that exact same risk.
The exact same risk, even though we don't know about the nature of Kathy's company, the other alleged out 11K guy's company, the exact same risk.
Yeah, again, black and white. Viewing things, stating things in black and white when he doesn't have all the facts. I mean, Kathy might not have all the facts either. So comparing those two things, we have no idea. We don't even know if Kathy's based in the US or if this guy that had an Amex bill was based in the US. I mean, who knows? There's a lot of different risk facts here that no one seems very intent on discovering. It's just, you're right. Sorry, I'm right. You're wrong. And that's the way it is.
Yeah. So should all the Dave Ramsey employees be afraid of their job because Dave Ramsey might padlock the door the next day?
Well, presumably, even though credit cards are bad, I guess Dave Ramsey issues, I'm sure, limited amount of money debit cards. It would be an interesting question, right? Like, how do Dave Ramsey's employees spend money for Dave Ramsey's company? So how did he build this site or this set here, right? Like how is he financing his company and paying for things? Is it all in cash? Is he just showing up with briefcases full of cash or debit cards? Or I don't know, this is a crazy idea. Do you think Dave Ramsey has a credit card?
But I do know that if you were to buy merchandise from Dave's website, whether it's books, whether it's his organizational envelope system, that you can use credit card at checkout to buy Dave's merchandise.
Wow, that sounds like somebody that's entirely invested in the success of others.
He's definitely not being consistent there. All right, let's continue with the video.
This is true. And
all for an airline mile.
Okay, is it all for an airline mile? Is that what we do? We get an airline mile, Darren?
That's correct. And fortunately, you only need two. One for me and one for you to fly around the world. No, I'm clearly being facetious.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know that Dave Ramsey has any idea how airline miles works. I've never seen him talk much about it, except to say that they're not useful or not worth the effort to put money, or the risk. I think he would define it as the risk of putting money on a credit card or using a credit card. So I don't know that he knows enough to say, but he's already decided that credit cards are bad. So if credit cards are bad, then certainly all the positive externalities using those credit cards are just, the proverbial apple in the Garden of Eden.
Yes, and when he says an airline mile, you could just see that he really doesn't know what he's talking about. An airline mile, not several, not a sign-up bonus, not a welcome offer, not a high spend goal, not retention bonus spend, not 5x bonus categories. It's just an airline mile. All right, we'll continue with the video here.
It's almost impossible to use.
Is it almost impossible to use your airline miles, Darren?
Basically impossible. Yep. I've never flown anywhere on them. Definitely not in first class. Definitely not in business class. Definitely not to the Middle East or to Europe. Absolutely not. All those things are, it's the Matrix, Justin. We're just making these things up. Green screen, the whole deal. Yep.
Yeah, and I have had some critics. Oh, I don't believe that you do all this travel for free or low cost, they'll say. And I'll share selfies, I'll share videos of my trips, and they're still going to say, oh, well, I don't know, I still don't believe it. And that's like seeming like Dave here. Even though I provide mountains of evidence that I'm traveling, I explain the process, I'll show the receipts, but Dave is still going to make this outstanding claim that they're impossible or almost impossible to use, although many of the flexible currencies are very easy to use, especially with the Chase travel portal. You could just log on. It takes the points against the cost of the flight, or with the altitude reserve points, you just get a text message and it asks you if you want to redeem points after your purchase. Or we have Capital One with purchase eraser features and so many more programs that are actually very easy to use.
I don't know, Justin. That all sounds very complicated for that 1 mile that you just earned on that big $11,000 purchase. So I don't know if that makes sense for me.
Yeah, and maybe Kathy's work weekend won't get her to Hawaii or some of these other destinations, but Dave missing the point that it's the cumulative effort, and this is very easy accumulation on spend that we're doing anyway.
It sure is.
And for us, we often refer to this as a hobby. We're having fun doing it. We're learning about these programs. We're going to these destinations. And many of these trips, I would never pay out of pocket. I would never pay $1,500, $2,000 plus for a cruise. I wouldn't pay for business class flights overseas. I would have never have gone to Hawaii or Alaska or some other trips. But thanks to these various companies, American Express included, I can go on these trips in a very, very affordable, very low cost way.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing, right? Is everyone, not everyone, I suppose, but many people have hobbies. Some people play sports, or, they knit, they do other things. And for you and I and a whole bunch of other people in this country, we find ways to accumulate points and miles that we can travel more comfortably or more luxuriously, or to go to places we otherwise wouldn't go. So I think there's a whole bunch of opportunity there. We should invite Dave to the next meetup of Greater Philadelphia Travel Points and Miles. I'm sure I butchered that name twice now.
Greater Philadelphia Travel.
There we go.
That's all right. It's in the show notes.
It's in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah,
we're doing it live.
That's right. Sorry about that. I just go. I just Justin's group. I don't know what it's called all the time. So we should invite Dave to come and spend some time with us so we can explain to him. I'm sure he'd be very open-minded about it all.
Yeah, and again, we're doing it at a more advanced level, but I've gotten people into this. Shout out to Travis B, if you're listening. he signed up for a World of Hyatt card, and he told me that, thank you for giving me the recommendation for the card, that I was overseas, plans changed, and the hotel rates were very, very high with the cash rates, but I was able to use Hyatt points that I got from the sign-up bonus in order to book 2 nights. And he was very happy with that redemption. It was very easy. He was able to do the redemption on his own, and it was no issue.
Yeah, and I think last episode you and I talked about a family trip in which my sister had signed up for a couple Southwest credit cards and earned the companion pass. And so that was enough for her family of 4 to fly round trip to Puerto Rico to join us on a multi-generational family trip. So again, that's a tremendous savings. It was money they were going to spend anyway. It's taking advantage, I think, of one of the best airline mile program benefits, the companion pass. And I think there's not everybody wants to fly first class. Not everybody wants to go to Europe or Australia or to Zanzibar, as it may be. But wherever you want to go, there are probably ways in which points and miles can help you get there cheaper or more comfortably.
All right, let's continue with the video here.
If you're willing to take that risk, I'd be very scared about it.
Okay, so Dave Ramsey is scared, so therefore you should be scared too. This is the constant problem with Dave, that he's being emotional about these things, so therefore everyone should have the same psychological response to it.
I think that, again, goes back to I've 35 years coaching and guiding people. I've seen it all. I've seen all the bad things happen, and so I think you should follow my rules and my guidance. And oh, by the way, I'm not going to think about this logically, because people that do have some sort of financial, we talk about, alcohol misuse disorder. Like maybe there's people that have the same situation where they aren't able to control their spending. That probably is a feeling more than a logic situation, right? And so he's trying to tap into those folks, and the feeling part probably makes more sense than if you think about it, here's what you could do approach, right? That doesn't, certainly logically that makes sense, but the ability to execute and follow that is probably more challenging for a lot of folks.
Yeah, this would be like me saying, oh, because I have a drinking problem, that you should be afraid of alcohol and you shouldn't drink at all because, oh, what about the risk? What about the risk? And then my other person comes back and says, well, actually, I can drink just 1 drink or just 2 drinks and walk away from it. I've been fine. I've been drinking for about 30 years. I just do it on social occasions. And then it would be like me coming back, well, oh, I don't know about the risk. I don't know about the risk. Like this is how Dave is behaving about credit cards.
That's a great analogy.
All right, let's continue with the video.
It is standard in corporate America. Somehow corporate America has conned its employee base into taking a loan on their behalf.
So this is the charged language. He's saying they've conned people rather than some more neutral language, like they're giving them the option to use their own cards for work-based expenses.
Well, cult leaders aren't really interested in discourse, right? They're interested in you following their lead.
Yeah,
just apropos of nothing. Not that David. I'm not suggesting Dave Ramsey is a cult leader. I'm just pointing out an interesting fact.
Yeah, it's all a con, and he's saying taking a loan out on their behalf. So is that really accurate too? Are you taking a loan out on their behalf?
Well, it's an interesting idea, right? A loan, as you and I well know, right? So different ways in which financial instruments are discussed and how they affect your credit and which credit scores they impact and so forth and so on, right? In a very simplistic viewpoint, sure, you're paying some amount of money. Perhaps you're not even paying anything. Perhaps the company will reimburse you before your credit card is due, and you don't have to pay anything, right? I see what he's saying, but again, he's talking all negative. He's talking all risk, and not discussing any benefit, except for that. Don't forget that one airline mile that we earned in the process, Jeff.
Yeah. All right, let's continue.
With the promise of repayment, and taking the risk for that, and acting like it's no big deal, but it's a real deal. I've noticed it.
It's a real deal. So it's more like be afraid, scary, risk, scared, real big deal.
Yeah, and Dave knows. Dave's a smart guy, right? He understands that humans are much more motivated by fear than they are positive reinforcement. So he's talking a lot about that and not much about the positive benefits or the opportunities that it could provide.
All right, let's continue with the video.
Many times going sideways on people.
Many times going sideways on people, but earlier he just gave one example about it going sideways in this extreme padlocked the next day scenario.
Well, you know what they say, Justin, right? Data is just the plural of a good story or something like that, I think. So he's already told the good story, so now he can just say many times, and he has data to support his precision.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to actually see a number on that of like how many people have been stiffed by their employer for travel-based expenses.
It's got to be a low number, right?
All right. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Halloween is on the approach, by the way. We're recording on October 21st, so be very afraid of credit cards. Oh, no. All right, we'll continue with the video here.
What people do is they run up stuff on their credit card because they're just not watching that's not reimbursable.
Okay, so he's talking about running up stuff on the credit card. So what does that have to do with the situation of the work-based reimbursement? I'm sure there are clear guidelines about what's going to be reimbursed. And if they say, okay, well, look, we're willing to pay you $50 a day for a meal allotment, we're willing to cover the hotel room, but then you decide to go to the gift shop and buy like $200 worth of stuff, and like, okay, well, that was your fault, not the employer and not the reimbursement process. You're not running up stuff if you're just doing things in a proper manner and following the rules. Who makes the rules?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just Dave connecting the dots here, right? We've already told the series story. We already said how useless airline miles are. And so now we're going to go back to the idea about how credit cards are inherently evil and how the usage of them or just having one in your household is inherently dangerous to your long-term happiness and financial well-being.
Yeah, the war on happiness. It's just a slippery slope. We're just going to run up expenses. Uh-oh, the credit card is tempting you. The credit card is going to take control of your brain.
I love the idea, though, of dressing up as a scary credit card for Halloween. Maybe that's what I'll do. It's a great idea, Justin.
Yeah, the plum card.
The plum card, yeah.
Or the luxury MasterCard, the heavyweight champ MasterCard, that black MasterCard.
The black card, yeah. The Amex black card.
No, it's like the luxury MasterCard. It's like no sign-up bonus.
Yeah. I know which one you mean, yeah. It's just the heaviest card out there. That's its claim to fame.
Yeah, the heavyweight champ, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe something from Credit One, or is it like First Premier Bank? Oh, it's too easy. All right. Maybe we'll see some scary credit cards this Halloween, but let's continue with the video.
Do we have to, Justin?
So they end up with a reimbursement check that's less than a balance.
That's right. Yeah, you could spend something on that credit card and think, oh, I'll get reimbursed for this. But Becky down in accounting might not think so.
Uh-oh, Becky down in accounting. Well, okay, this is what you do. Like I said, you ask about, okay, what are the rules? What's reimbursed? And you're not just going to assume things are going to be reimbursed. You're going to be clear about what is reimbursed. Have you had this issue, Darren? You go on a work-related trip, and then all of a sudden Becky from accounting just says, oh, no, we're not going to reimburse that.
I have not. And I think this is a straw man argument, right? Because whether you put that non-reimbursable expense on your personal credit card or a corporate card, you're still gonna have to pay for it because it's non-reimbursable. We're not talking about things that are actually detrimental here. We're using scared.
Yeah, he's bringing up other issues and getting away from the employer-based reimbursement conversation.
And he still hasn't directly answered the question.
It's so hard. It's so hard to like have a straight face listening to this because it's just so ridiculous.
I don't know if I can take 5 more minutes of this, Justin.
Oh, all right. Let's continue with this spooky video from Dave Ramsey.
And so you're on the hook for that.
But you got an airline mile.
Oh, there it is again. You got your airline mile.
What would be a system in which you would earn 1 mile for $11,000? Like, how valuable would that mile have to be? That would be an interesting thought experiment.
Just one credit per flight. That's it.
Yeah. It's maybe like Acme Safeway where you earn rewards, but then those rewards turn into redeemable something. You earn points that turn into rewards.
Oh, yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big America loves math moment. It's like spend 11,000, get 1 point.
It's absurd is what it is.
Well, it's almost like the plum card. You got to spend 10,000 for the tier of the $200 bonus through referral, right? That's a bit spooky.
Did you get 1 point though, Justin, out of the plum card?
Nope. All right, let's continue with the video.
And when you use a debit card, the strangest thing happens. You pay more attention because it's like real money.
Or many people in the audience and me and you pay attention to what we're spending on credit cards because we also view it as real money.
Yeah, I hope Kathy is just hung up by now. I hope she's not staying to listen to this drivel that she's already decided that the people here aren't actually interested in helping her, providing her any actual real advice, and they're just going to preach the good word of Dave Ramsey from their pulpit and tell her that anytime she questions their authority that she is not smart enough or not experienced enough or not whatever enough to understand how big and bad the real world is.
Yep, we're just being responsible adults here, making responsible financial decisions, and I've been doing this since 2018, and I've been okay, and you might have been doing this longer. Many other listeners have been doing this for a while. Again, if you can't handle credit, don't use credit, but for those who can, there's a lot to be earned, a lot more than an airline mile. All right, let's continue with the video.
Here's the deal, Kathy. Couple things. Number one, when you use a credit card, you are likely to spend more than when you use a debit card, period.
Okay, period. He's just saying this. This is his gospel, let's say. And just because some people are more likely to spend more doesn't mean that Kathy is likely to spend more. Is that how the world works?
Yeah, I think, again, he's overgeneralizing to make his point. And it certainly could be that the majority of his, we'll use the word disciples here, are in the position where if they had a credit card, or they perhaps do have a credit card, and they do spend more, right? Because it doesn't require you don't have to balance your checkbook every time you put a credit card charge on, right? It is easier to spend more money than you're able to pay off. But that's not entirely different than any other financial instrument in which you're taking out loans. So it's not different than buying a car and taking a loan, or mortgage, or any of those things. And I don't know. I feel like Dave might be okay with some of those things, but somehow credit cards for day-to-day living and certainly the benefits that you can accrue by using them are out of bounds and off limits.
Yeah, it's like many people walk into casinos and play slot machines, so therefore when Justin walks into a casino, Justin will play a slot machine. Well, no, because I've thought about this and determined that slot machines aren't worth my time. I'm not willing to pay the 5 to 10% house edge. I don't see a reason to play it. I'm going in and being very intentional. I'm just going in to play poker, and I'm staying away from 000 roulette. I'm staying away from 6 to 5 blackjack. I'm staying away from slots. Just because many people lack discipline doesn't mean that I'm going to go in there and make undisciplined decisions.
It seems like, Justin, that you think you're the credit card exception. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the impression I get here. Dave would not be a fan of this.
Uh-oh.
I'm fooling myself, he'd say. All right, let's continue with the video.
Tons of research showing that, because it doesn't have the same friction, marketers call it, in your brain.
A lot more.
Okay, so some people spend more, but it doesn't mean that Kathy and everyone is going to spend more just because some people spend more. He's missing that distinction here.
He hasn't even really addressed the question right. He's talking about some people spending more money on a credit card. But again, that the idea here is that all credit cards or just having a credit card is bad, which is not really Kathy's question. Kathy's question is, I have a credit card. I can accrue miles or points or some sort of economic incentive by using it for a purchase and then get reimbursed with that. And neither person answering that question or talking in attempts to try to answer the question is actually providing any sort of helpful guidance.
Yeah, he's just going on the anti-credit diatribe here. All right, let's continue the diatribe.
So your chances of spending more are higher. Where you're doing it on behalf of an employer hoping for reimbursement, your chances of making a mistake are higher.
Okay, so you're hoping for a reimbursement, or are you just following the rules and getting the reimbursement? Are we hoping when you go and check in at your hotel with your job, are you just hoping to get reimbursed, Darren?
I'm not. I'm hoping that when I play blackjack, that I get a lot of 10s and 11s against 6s that I can double up against. That's what I'm hoping for, Justin. But that's they say hope is not a strategy. So what I'm planning on is a contractual agreement between an employer and an employee about reimbursement of travel expenses. That seems like a pretty reasonable.
So you have a reasonable expectation that you're going to get reimbursed. You have plenty of evidence in the past that you've gotten reimbursed, and you have no good reason to think that they're just going to stiff you. So you've made an educated decision, and there's very low risk that they're just going to stiff you and the padlock is going to go on the door the next day.
Exactly. It would be like saying, well, I always stop at a green light because you never know if the person coming the other way will run the red light, right? Has that ever happened to you? Well, no, but it could. They could be not paying attention. They could be a drunk driver. They could be asleep at the wheel, and they could run that red light and hit me. Sure, that could happen. But as you said, it's never happened to me. I don't anticipate it's going to happen to me. And so while I'm cautious with, and aware of my surroundings, it's not something that I'm worried about actively every time I go through an intersection.
All right, we'll continue the video. We're 3 minutes and 20 seconds in out of 7 minutes and 40 seconds. Let's continue here.
Obviously, you don't think that any of this applies to you, but it does.
Okay, so again, belittling the caller. Oh, you think you're above it all. You don't think anything applies to you. It's so bad. It's so bad. Imagine just being Kathy right now. Like, is Kathy a Ramsey fan? And you're just getting like belittled by Dave. Oh man, Kathy.
Maybe past tense was a Ramsey fan. Maybe not anymore though.
All right, let's continue.
And so you're just more susceptible to risk and to problems.
So you're more susceptible, but how much more susceptible? Does it go from like a 0.001 chance of the padlock the next day to 0.002? You're more susceptible, so he's more trying to scare you here.
I think your numbers are still way too high. It's like it's like winning the lottery versus, I don't know, being struck by lightning in consecutive days or something. I think those are the risks. Those are the effective numbers that we're talking about here.
All right, let's continue with the video.
And I think the most compelling argument is this.
All right, here's the most compelling argument.
I have never met a single millionaire that says, Dave, I made it all on my airline miles.
So because no one's become a millionaire on airline miles, you shouldn't use a credit card to get reimbursed by an employer. That's the most compelling argument.
Well, first of all, that argument is incorrect. There are a number of people who have made a living and a business and have become very wealthy in the points and miles space.
Oh, it's so bad. And it's not like, is anyone really making the argument and saying that I got wealthy just on airline miles? Wouldn't that just be something along the process that you're doing many other things? Like you have a reselling business, you have a regular job, but this is supplementing your income, or you're using the travel for recreational purposes. Or maybe, I went to this networking event using my airline miles, and look, I made these great connections and I got a better position. So I don't understand why the bar has to be, well, you either became wealthy just on credit cards, or the alternative is, if you didn't get wealthy or become rich or a millionaire on airline miles, then airline miles isn't worth it. So you shouldn't watch WWE if you don't become wealthy watching WWE. I've never heard of a millionaire who said they became a millionaire because they watched WWE. So therefore, WWE should not be on your TV, Darren.
I'll make a note. I mean, and again, I think it's short-sighted, right? To say that people don't benefit from credit cards, from airline miles, from any of those things, especially early in a business where you're maybe looking for favorable terms. You can spend some amount of money with 0% interest for some number of months, or you can use miles to fly to meet with future customers, or meet with future vendors, or network and advertise your new services or company, right? Like all of those things potentially would have tremendous benefit to you as a startup. And again, the idea that you should do it all in cash and in debit is somewhere short of absurd.
I never met a millionaire who said he got wealthy at his first job as a dishwasher, so therefore nobody should ever have a first job as a dishwasher. Like, come on, Dave, it's part of the process. Airline miles, credit card rewards, cashback, and much more can be part of the process. Just because it's not the whole process doesn't mean that you should just not do it. All right, let's continue with the video here.
That was my breakthrough. My financial difference, the difference maker in my financial plan was I took a $1 billion company that studies consumer behavior in depth, and I was smarter than them. I whipped them. I didn't spend more, and I got airline miles. And I actually used the airline miles. I actually gamed the system.
Okay, so now he's just berating people who think they're winning with miles and points. Oh, you think you're smarter than these banks? Okay, well, maybe we're not smarter than the banks. Maybe we could just have like some sort of average IQ, but still benefit from these reward programs. What's going on? What's going on here, Darren?
What's going on here? I mean, I was actually starting to agree with Dave there for a minute. I have benefited from points and miles. I have been able to, leverage. Again, the banks make the rules, and then we identify opportunities within those rules to benefit ourselves. So I for this time in the whole video, I've agreed with the last two sentences that Dave has said. Unfortunately, I think he's being facetious, and he's, again, belittling the caller and anybody else that might think like her, unfortunately. But yeah, that's the idea, right? That in every system, there are opportunities to benefit, right? It's the blackjack card counting system. The deck is literally stacked against you. The rules are set against you. Not different with credit cards. The rules, generally speaking, are set against you. You have an annual fee. There's a high interest rate. There's late payments. There's all these extra things. And if you play your cards correctly in certain instances and certain times, you can dramatically benefit dramatically, I suppose, from a system that is intended to be not in your favor. That's what you and I look for and utilize every day, right? Like, I am sure that Cash App, please, Cash App, let's not listen to this podcast. I'm sure Cash App is not intending for me to go into CVS every day and load $400 to my server account and get $20 in the process just by moving money from one account to another in a beautiful arbitrage sort of scenario. But that's what I'm doing. Their incentives are for me, and probably CVS is incentivizing them to spend money at CVS by giving 5% back. And we've identified that opportunity to be able to convert it into something that is just pure profit every single day that we're able to do it. And Dave is like, no, you can't do that because, well, I guess those two things would be okay, right? Because those are both debit cards. So finally, Dave and I found an opportunity that we can both agree on is a good idea.
Yeah, but he's not teaching people how to do that. He's just lamenting just think we have many local supermarkets here, Giant in Pennsylvania, Weiss Markets, and many others where, hey, exchange a certain amount of grocery rewards for a free holiday item, the tofurkey, the vegan ham, the lasagna, and many others on the list. And people like me are just going to go in and get the free item and leave, while others will spend more money. But if you can be mindful about it, then you can win. Not everybody is going to be a loser, but Dave's message is so dispiriting. Oh, the banks are smarter than you. You can't win. You're going to lose. Oh, you're deluded. You think you're going to get rich on this, but you're not.
Dave is the only one that's allowed to be exceptional in this conversation. That's very clear.
All right, let's continue.
I became a millionaire because of it. Never met one. Not in 30 years of doing this.
So do you think people like Elon Musk or many other high earners, Oprah Winfrey, do you think that they just don't use credit at all? They've never taken any loans. They've never done anything. Now, okay, Elon and Oprah might not say, oh, it's credit card rewards that made me rich, but they definitely used credit in that process. I'm very, very confident that they do.
Well, famously, Elon Musk, put up part of his SpaceX business, right, as collateral towards buying Twitter when he went into that. So yeah, absolutely. Right. Like absolutely. Wealthy people use credit and leverage in order to finance future, presumably profitable businesses. Again, I think it's foolish to not consider that when you're in that early phase. I mean, it's the same with venture capital, the same the world around.
Yeah, it's really bad. I know. All right, we'll continue here with the video.
Let me take it a step further.
I know a lot of middle-class broke people who think they're gaming the system and are walking, strutting around, acting like they got something with an airline mile, but they really didn't.
Okay, middle-class broke people. When was anyone saying that middle-class broke people are beating the system when Dave is just admitting that they're broke?
I don't know, man. This argument's becoming less and less. I mean, it's just a mess.
Yeah, and because there are broke people, that you're going to be broke people too. Like, I don't know what he's trying to get at here. All right, we'll continue.
I don't like supporting companies that their entire model for having revenue is built on failure.
Okay, so then once you can't make arguments, once the caller has brought up these arguments, so we're just going to say, oh, the banks are meanie poo. The banks are completely built on you failing, and we've addressed that, and the banks aren't totally built on you failing. Yes, they are taking interest. Yes, they are making money here and there, but there can be a mutually beneficial relationship for those that are playing the game well.
So I guess they only go to banks where no one has ever defaulted on their loan, and that's where they bank. Is that the bank of perfect? I don't know, lollipop land? Come on.
Yeah, and mortgages. Dave has talked about mortgages. He's been okay with, as far as I remember, the 15-year fixed rate mortgage. So are banks evil for giving these mortgages? Like any company that has ever had a complaint with the Better Business Bureau, we should just not deal with them. We're going to be the monk on the mountain and withdrawal from society because some companies have had problems, some banks have had problems.
Maybe we should just go back to bartering, Justin. That seems like the only good solution at this point.
We'll get the seashells ready from Atlantic City. All right, let's continue here.
Failure to pay on time. I don't like that. I like companies that offer a service that really would like to help you, and they get revenue from giving you something or helping you.
Okay, but when I think of Chase, American Express, I actually think of them as helping me because they're giving me all these travel benefits. I'm not paying these late fees. I'm not missing payments. I'm playing the game well, so that's what makes me the credit card exception.
I agree, 100%.
All right, I think that's good with the video. We're at about an hour here. I think we've gotten through it 5 out of 7 minutes, but there were just so many times I had to interrupt, and we had to address many of these terrible talking points. So think about risk, think about your life, that if you have a steady job with a employer that's very, very unlikely to stiff you, then it's actually could be a good opportunity to get spend on your personal cards, working towards sign-up bonuses, getting the bonus categories, using various benefits. All right, anything you have to add to that, Darren?
No, I mean, I think just calling this number would be entertainment. I mean, kind of, right? Like poor Kathy.
Oh, for those they can't see it, there's
sorry.
a phone number on the screen. Have a question, call 888-825-5225, which is the Ramsey Show Hotline. And there's also on the screen behind the co-host, it's Pods Moving and Storage Company. So I would assume that Dave has some sort of affiliate relationship with them. And I wonder if there have been any complaints against Pods, or Pods makes money providing a service. Oh no, they're so bad. Uh-oh, I don't know if we should deal with them. Dave Ramsey provides a service and makes money. Uh-oh.
I'm sure Pods would never charge you a late fee if you didn't return your pod on time either, right? That sounds like...
Not in that situation, man. Not in that situation. All right, so it's an interesting video. You've got questions, you could call in the Ramsey Show. It would be interesting to have a conversation with one of them, but I was blocked by one of their personalities, or host George Camel on Twitter. So unfortunately, I don't think that conversation is going to happen. But yeah, it's a lot of these talking points I hear day to day from people. And it's so many people Dave has his influence on, and they just repeat what he says. But I think when you just think a little bit critically of his message and say, okay, maybe not everyone is going to get stiffed by their employer. Maybe not everyone is going to go into credit card debt. Hey, maybe I can responsibly manage credit, and this can be a winning proposition for me.
That's not the vibes, man. The vibes are credit's evil. People can't be trusted to make good decisions financially. But fortunately, Dave Ramsey is here to save us all.
Not much of a message from hope from Dave, unfortunately. It's just use your debit, use your cash, miss out on all these flights, miss out on these hotel rooms, miss out on our monthly dining credits and much more that we take advantage of. I don't know what other hobbies he's going to suggest people get involved in, but for me, the credit card hobby works pretty well and enhances many of my other hobbies.
Yeah, likewise, Justin. Again, I think it's for many folks, you can do it and benefit from the spend you already have. For businesses, I think there's a real opportunity there to incorporate credit card sign-up bonuses and other things, and to benefit either people in your company or your you or your family. Again, I think there are a number of benefits here that Dave and his co-host aren't willing to even examine or discuss, because it's all fruit from the proverbial poison tree.
All right, so Dave Ramsey once again leading the war on happiness, telling you that you can't have confidence in yourself. You'll never be the exception. You're not smarter than the banks. Don't even try. And I'm out here saying, okay, maybe you should try it. And if you could be responsible with your spending, you can be slightly organized, that this can have a big impact in your life. Maybe you won't be a millionaire because you flew to Hawaii, but it can add a good amount of fun, and it can help you on that path towards wealth.
And maybe you get to go to Hawaii, and otherwise you wouldn't have, right? Like, again, the idea that, I don't know, you're supposed to scrape and save your whole life, and then to do what, right?
Oh, yeah. In other videos, he said that if you're in any kind of debt, you should never see the inside of a restaurant. He talks about the rice and beans. The entertainment's not for you. Just stay home. You're in debt, so you have to really, really scale back and just have like very, very little entertainment. But don't forget to tithe at the church, of course, and maybe give some money to Dave Ramsey as well.
Yeah, the Church of Dave Ramsey, for sure. Make sure you buy his special envelopes to put all your money in.
All right. Any other closing thoughts?
I'm just thankful you didn't make us go through the whole video, Justin. It's about all I could stomach. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we got up to 4 minutes and 52 seconds out of the 7-minute, 40-second video, but I think we covered most of it. And again, it's around an hour here.
Appreciate you having me back. A little bit of a different topic here. Would be happy to hear what our listeners would like to hear us talk about next, and whether that's more credit cards and miles and points, or whether trip reports or whatever. Again, we'd be happy to do it, and appreciate the opportunity to visit with you.
Yeah, thanks. I do have an episode on gift card reselling coming up. I have a Las Vegas trip report coming up, so some more content, but I think that this is a topic that should be revisited once in a while. So thanks for joining me on this one.
It was a pleasure, although I will say listening to Dave Ramsey spout his nonsense was not at all a pleasure.
But debunking it is a good service. A good
That's
service
right.
you did.
That's
today.
right. Everyone has to do it, right? Everyone has to do their charity work.
All right. Thanks for joining me today, and thanks to listeners for tuning in.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for future episodes. Visit hurdygurdytravel.com to contact me, find me on social media, read select episode transcripts, schedule a free consultation, and use referral links to support my efforts. Find this show on many podcast platforms and YouTube, where you can find bonus videos. Supporting me with monthly donations on Subscribestar will give you special perks, including a custom podcast episode, questions answered by upcoming guests, and monthly private one-on-one conversations delving into more advanced topics I don't openly discuss at length in podcast episodes. Visit meetup.com/Philly miles and points to learn about monthly Greater Philadelphia travel, credit miles and points meetups I host in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. I hope to see you in person at a future event. Find a link in the show notes. I'll be speaking at 2 more events in 2024, including the October Chicago Seminars event at Holiday Inn Elk Grove Village, and the Miles Points and Gambling event, Zorkfest, November 2024 in Las Vegas. For more content between podcast episodes, follow Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast on Facebook and X, formerly known as Twitter. Follow Justin Vacula on Instagram. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.
Travel at low cost with points and miles. Credit card rewards bring the smiles. Many adventures, tales to be told. Make and save money, the world will unfold. Fight the war on happiness, pick up the gold. Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast breaks the mold.